Hello, I'm Nick Knight. I'm here with my assistant Britt, and I just want to talk to you about the lighting we used for our last shoot for V magazine, which was of Kylie Jenner. It's a particularly interesting sort of light. We call it either a rim light, bounce back light, or wraparound light. It's really the light that, it's not direct light, it's a light that comes from the sort of bounce back of the wall, of the white wall which we've lit. So I'll let Britt tell you a little bit more in detail about that.
Yeah, so for this lighting setup, position and distance is really important. We use flash heads and we light them into polyboards, which then bounce back against our wall, which then bounces back to the model. So because there's a lot of bouncing with the light from where it starts from the original head, it means by the time it reaches the model, it's very soft and gentle and has a very nice outline and shape of her body. It's important to make sure that she's further enough forward from the backlight so it doesn't wrap round to her face and then she gets...
We're not side lighting her, that's the important thing. It's not a side light. It's you point the lights at the background wall and it's just spilled from those lights. So you can see that if you move the model further enough towards the camera, there's a point where she's no longer directly lit by the backlight. It literally is just a side light.
And that's a good way actually that we tested it, is you have a stand-in model and then moving them ever so slightly, you quite quickly and can quite easily see where the light's hitting her. And that's also really pretty as well, because when we moved her body around, it lights different shapes and then it might exaggerate more the shape of her back or more the shape of her face. So if she turns ever so slightly, you get a very nice light on her profile, or if she turns back, it gives more of a kind of cheekbone look. And
yeah. The story was called Sheer because Anna Trevelyan, who was a stylist, wanted to use completely sheer clothes. So you see the shape of Kylie's body, which of course is one of the things she's very famous for, through the clothes. So it had to be a delicate light. It's actually quite a hard one to judge when you're getting it right. What we did is we sort of put, as Britt just described, a light bouncing from either side of her, and then we put some black, it's like a black polyboard behind her, so she's actually against black, so you get this very gentle white line around her. Then we asked my other assistant, Rob, to go lie on the floor, to not be seen, and to hold a very direct light, so you're then lighting in a very strong way to go against a very gentle light, so you really even bring out even more the shape of her body. It was quite a task for Rob, because of course there's not very much to Kylie, and she's wearing a sheer dress, so he had to be very physically nimble to not appear in every photograph.
Which she was quite successful with. I think the black was really nice, and especially with her light hair, and it just meant that the bounce back light that gave her this kind of outline was a lot more refined. And then with Rob's extra light, he sort of directed that in different positions as well. Yeah. So it kind of hit her head or hit different positions, and it was a nice combination.
And I was taking photographs. Britt, you were filming. It's a light that works just as well for film or for photography. I think one of the things that I've seen happen over the years is that people, when they think, okay, well, I'm going to do film now, they completely abandon all the lighting they just made for the stills, or they don't look at it in the same way. People tend to really overlight for film. This lighting is the same. I've been filming every shoot I've done since the 1980s, and part of it is you can see that all the still lighting I use works just as well for film. So Britt was filming at my side.
And it was really beautiful. I was filming quite close in, and when you were just profiling her face or a particular part of her body, you then had this very soft, gentle sort of halo around her, which then on against the black as well, all was very, very beautiful.
Yeah. It's a lighting setup I've used a few times. It's always tricky. I think the first time I used it was for Christian Dior, way back in 1998 or 1997, for one of the first campaigns I did with John. Then I used it for Kate Moss, for another magazine. It's a beautiful light if you get it right. The weird thing is seeing it first of all, because when you first do it, it's nothing. It doesn't look like anything. There's no direct light. And what's also happening, of course, is you have the light that's spilling from the background, but then you have the white floor of the studio, and that provides actually the light you see her in. But it's all very subtle and very gentle.
And I think that's particularly nice for this story, because as you said earlier, with the sheer clothes, we didn't want to give them too much of a harsh lighting to them. It was actually their softness and their gentleness and the texture of them that meant they just moved very elegantly, and when we use wind machines, so I think the ambient light was really helpful for making them look beautiful.
So one of the important things to try and do with this lighting is to keep your camera position quite not too exaggerated, not too far up or too far down. You tend to lose it then. It is actually quite a hard lighting to work with because it's quite subtle. And if you take your camera high up and start looking down, you'll get a very different feeling on her. If you take it low down and start looking up, you'll get a different feeling. So it's actually, the camera ends up being quite straight onto her, and you move her much more, move the model much more. But otherwise, it's an exciting light to use because it's such a delicate light, and such a sort of nothingy light.
I think it was also really nice to see Kylie in that lighting, especially with the clothes and the hair and makeup. It was a lot more pared down and made her feel a lot more womanly and soft and gentle.
It's about showing her as a person, less of an image. Lisa Eldridge wanted to do no makeup at all, but then we got her on set actually, putting a few little sort of sparkly stars around her eyes just looked so beautiful, it was hard to resist. But I think it was an interesting way of working, especially for Kylie, who is normally represented much more in a hard light, much more sort of up front, if you want. So to sort of knock it back and make it very sort of super delicate was quite exciting.